Welcome to the Agriculture Revolution podcast, where you will explore the world of agriculture through the lens of entrepreneurship and innovation. By interviewing experts in a diverse set of careers, this podcast provides an interdisciplinary and comprehensive insight into some of the most prominent and pressing developments in agriculture. Whether you're interested in food security, sustainability, AI technology, or just interested in learning more about agriculture, this is the show for you. And now your host, Julian Jensen Lim.
Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to bring you another episode of the Agriculture Revolution podcast. My name is Julian Jensen Lim, and today on the show, we'll be discussing how entrepreneurship and technology impacts the agriculture industry and promotes sustainability. We'll be joined by Liron Brish, who is the founder and CEO of FarmDog, the leading pest and disease management platform for growers and agronomists. Liron, it is a pleasure to have you on today, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Julian. I appreciate you having me on and allowing me to share my story and talk about entrepreneurship and ag tech. My quick background, I grew up in Texas, born in Israel, grew up in Texas. If you go back to my grandparents' generation, they had farmland in Eastern Europe. On my dad's side, on my mom's side, they owned a butcher shop outside of Tel Aviv together. Then the ag world skipped my parents' generation, and I'm very glad to be back in it. My background, as I mentioned, I grew up in Texas, but in Austin, so I'm not going to pretend like I grew up on a farm. I studied finance at the University of Texas, then studied law at NYU Law School, then went into consulting at McKinsey, which is an international consulting firm. While at McKinsey, I had my first true exposure both to agriculture and technology. I was working on touch technology in 2008 or 9 before the iPad came out, where the question was, what industries is touch and mobile technology going to affect? And obviously the answer was everything. And also started to work with grocery stores around the world on their fruit and vegetable supply chain. So really trying to reduce the amount of waste, amount of fruits and vegetables being thrown out compared to what was going in through their door until it got to the end consumer. During that time, also became a partner in a couple farm-to-fork restaurants down in Texas. And so exposed to the challenges of the local farmers market type of farmers, and then founded FarmDog around 4 years ago.
Wow, that's really cool how you've kind of been in all these different industries, studying finance and then law at NYU, and then later becoming a consultant.
Yep, it's it's one of those things where as an entrepreneur you can connect the dots to make a story, but when you actually look at it, it just looks like one of those scatter plots of dots all over the place and force fitting something.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Can you tell me about your startup and business model? It seems that in the industrial age, many businesses and individuals are chasing high yields while compromising sustainability. How are you working to balance the two out?
Yeah, great question. So FarmDog's ultimate mission is to help growers reduce pesticide use, protect their yields, and promote environmental sustainability. And that's going to be a mission that you're going to see, it's going to be a similar mission to many companies in the space. The challenge in our space is that to prove out that mission, to get to that, it's not something that a farmer can use your technology for a month and you can say, yes, I reduced pesticide use and protected yields, mission success. That's not going to happen, right? It's something that lasts over several growing seasons that you have to continuously prove out. The challenge is to combine that long-term mission with the value proposition of today, that day one value proposition, as I call it. And so the way that FarmDog is built, when I sell our platform to our users, which as you mentioned are farmers or agronomists, the value proposition is not pesticide reduction. I can't prove that within that first year, even the first 2 years of them using us. The value proposition is time savings and improved communication that comes from the traditional analog to digital transformation that you've seen in lots of other industries. Today in agriculture, farmers, about 60 to 65% of farmers are still using pen and paper to track their field notes, right? That's, that you can't really compare that to other industries. The second you have that digital transformation, you get that value proposition. Now, in parallel, the great thing is once you digitize, you have that digital database of the information you need in order to ultimately get to that decision support tool that will lead to reduced pesticide use and protected yields and environmental sustainability. I oftentimes compare it to the transformation that went in the medical field. 20 years ago, if you went to a doctor, sometimes still today, the doctor, they'll have that huge cabinet behind the reception desk with everybody's records, but they're all on paper with scribbled doctor notes. Now, what did that allow folks to do? It allowed you, when you went to the doctor would pull out your note and read your history while he or she is looking at you. Not very helpful. The second we started digitizing those records, it opened up a whole slew of opportunity and value proposition. On the one hand, time savings. I'm putting aside, for the doctors listening, I know that there's a lot of extra time required due to regulations. I'm putting that aside. The time savings I'm talking about is the fact that when a patient comes in, you have his or her medical history right in front of you, easily accessible, easily searchable. Communication, right? When I go to the doctor, by the time I get home, even beforehand, I have my visit information, sometimes benchmarking me to other people. It also helps out with insurance. It helps out with improved lifestyle choices, right? But it all started from that digitization. And so that's really how we're doing it at FarmDog. Day one value proposition that you get from digitization of time savings communication, which then lead to those sustainability improvements that everybody's after.
Very interesting. How do you guys go about getting that day one value proposition? Can you describe the process of conducting that kind of evaluation?
What we realized is that kind of best practices of what's called integrated pest management, which is integrated pest management is a model of dealing with pest and disease that says, hey, farmer, you have 4 types of controls available to you for pest and disease management. One is cultural controls, meaning don't plant the exact same thing year over year over year over year because you're just creating a home for a specific pest. The second is operational controls. So for example, at the end of the season, if it's tomatoes, for example, many farmers will cut down and burn down their tomato plants so that after harvest, so that they don't, again, create a home for pest and disease to stick around. The third is biologicals, which says, you know what, ladybugs eat aphids, right? We can use ladybugs or other beneficial insects to eat things. And then the fourth is chemical, which is the pesticides. What integrated pest management says is pesticides aren't bad in and of themselves. They should be one tool within your toolkit on what to use. And so knowing which of these to use when and where, you got to be out in your field. And that's that first step in this whole integrated pest management aspect, which is what's called scouting, in which a grower or agronomist goes out to their field. They look around and say, oh, I have whitefly, severity level high. Because of this, I need to use treatment X. That's awesome. 90% of growers and agronomists are doing this in the US, according to the USDA. The challenge or the problem is they're not capturing that data digitally. And so what we said is, these groups are making, these people are creating a treasure trove of data. It needs to be captured. Let's give them an easy way to capture it that gives them a value proposition along the way.
Yeah, so it seems very clear that this digitization of data is very beneficial to the farmer in that, they have all this data available to them. So in your opinion, how is technology shaping the agriculture industry? And what do you think are some promising technologies for the future?
So tech is a means to an end, right? In everything. Is a means to an end to sustainability. And sustainability in agriculture, for me, it's 3 aspects. There's the environmental sustainability, which is what we all think of when we initially think of sustainability. But there's also financial sustainability, which is making sure that the farmer can continue to have a livelihood. And then there's also social sustainability in terms of keeping our rural communities alive. For me, sustainability encompasses all those. We could stop using pesticides altogether. We could ban them, right? We could say from here on out, no more pesticides. Great, environmental sustainability, through the roof. But every farmer is going to go out of business, and the social fabric of these communities is going to fall apart. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we could say, hey, farmers, use whatever pesticides you want, as much as you want, wherever you want. Theoretically, I'm not going to get into the details of the operational cost of using pesticides, but theoretically, financial sustainability goes up because, no losses, but environmental sustainability goes way down because, pesticides aren't good at the end of the day. And then over time we build up resistance, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you could also make the argument that social sustainability goes down because if you're spraying chemicals all over the place, that's not good for the rural community or for the person that lives across the fence line from where things are being sprayed. And so tech is a means to an end to optimize for all three of those. And from that aspect, to me, I always go back to you can't manage what you can't measure. And so tech should first of all give us an ability to understand, what is out there. Kind of that descriptive data is what is my current state. The next aspect is predictive, right? And helping the user predict what will happen. If they do X, then Y will happen. And then over time, hopefully you get to prescriptive, which is actually saying, hey, here's what you should do. Now, in agriculture, I think it's very challenging, if not impossible, and also dangerous to get to prescriptive. The reason being you're dealing with nature, right? There are a million variables out there that frankly is going to be impossible for any tech stack to fully capture all of those. And so to me, I think where ag tech is going to end up is a very sophisticated, predictive decision-making tool that will eventually allow the grower to make an informed choice and really say, okay, here's what technology X is predicting for me to do. Let me take that into account once I make that ultimate decision. And so that's how I see ag tech playing. And again, it's a means to an end that helps growers deal with labor issues, helps them deal with agronomic issues, all sorts of things. The ag tech that I think is really exciting, and I'll just lump it into groups. The first one is technology that is easy to use. And that's not really a type of technology, that's a descriptive factor. The reason being is there's been a few phases in the ag tech world. There's the ag tech 1.0, which are the folks who have been around 15, 20 plus years and really were smarter than the rest of us and said, hey, there's an opportunity here and let's bring technology to agriculture. The pioneers, frankly, in the space. The challenge for many of those is that when you look at their solutions, they look like solutions from 20 years ago. It's like if you and I were to turn on our computer and have to deal with MS-DOS. And so for me, the things that excite me the most within ag tech is, first of all, anything that is easy to use, regardless of whether it's robotics, farm management system, scouting application, something that's easy to use, because let's remember, most of our users aren't sitting in an air-conditioned room in front of a computer. They're out in the field where it's hot, it's muggy, it's dusty. They may not have a network connectivity. Things need to work. So that's number one. Number two for me are things that are technologies that help growers with labor issues. Today, there's a huge labor shortage in agriculture, whether it's from the agronomic expertise. We're not training and graduating enough agronomists, whether it's the manual labor out in the fields, which isn't, manual labor has this connotation of anybody can do it. It's very hard work, and it's actually, there's sophistication to the work. If you've ever watched a group of folks harvesting in specialty crops, for example, that's something that you got to learn to do well, at least do efficiently. So any technologies that work in that, and a few examples are some great robotics technologies that are out there, whether it's to deal with harvesting, which is always really cool to see, whether it's deal with weeding, and so really replacing herbicides. Those are always really exciting to see. And there's a few companies in the space doing that. So that to me is really interesting. And then the next group, which is interesting to me, always interesting, is companies that are integrating different solutions. In this space, if you talk to a company 4 years ago, you'd ask them, what is your ultimate goal? What is your ultimate vision? They would probably tell you to be the be-all, end-all platform for the grower. And we, the company, are going to build all of that. Great, right? It's great that everybody was thinking big. The problem is agriculture technology is really tough. It's really tough for no matter what you're doing. And I'll put it this way: I don't think that any company, regardless of how much buzz or press they've gotten, regardless of how much money they've raised, regardless of how awesome their videos are, and even regardless of even if they've got really happy clients, has fully solved what it is that they're trying to solve for. Whether it's irrigation management, pest and disease management, nutrient management, and all these things are interconnected, right? And so for me, I look at this industry as an ecosystem approach that's going to say there's going to be companies focusing on a bunch of different things. They're going to get really smart at their thing. It may be an imagery company. It may be a pest and disease management company. It may be a robotics company. And I know that these things overlap, but I'm purposely placing that way. And the companies that are starting to integrate with others in order to create this unified solution for the grower, those are exciting to me as well, because I think those are the ones that are going to ultimately succeed in terms of a platform for the grower, which, it's similar. It's almost, to simplify it, it's like the Slack model for the rest of us. What made Slack so great, in my opinion, is its integration with tens, hundreds, I don't even know how many integrations they have right now. And that made everybody's jobs 1,000 times easier. And that's where ag tech is heading. And that's what excites me. So again, to me, it's companies that are building products that are easy to use. It's companies that are dealing with labor issues, and it's companies that are integrating. Those are all really interesting to me.
Yeah, I can definitely see how adopting that interdisciplinary approach to agriculture is extremely beneficial to a company.
Yeah.
So can you explain the process of how you use advanced data collection and AI in your company? You mentioned before how, technology is a means to an end. So can you explain how this data collection really helps benefit your consumer and try to get to those ultimate goals of sustainability and higher crop yield?
Yeah. And I'll walk kind of through the simple value proposition to the most advanced AI, machine learning buzzwords that we can think of. The first value prop is really just data access, right? It's being able to go out to your field and easily seeing what you saw last week, where you were last week, what your teammates saw last week, and have all that combined. And really just data entry and data storage value proposition that we take for granted in a lot of other industries, but yet hasn't been fully realized here in agriculture. So that's number one. The second aspect is being able to visualize that. And so one of the things that we do, for example, the way we collect pest and disease data is in a standardized, structured, georeferenced way, as opposed to just free text. Right? There's lots of solutions that allow you to take notes, but we collect this information standardized, structured, georeferenced. What that allows us to do is to start visualizing what's going on in your field, right? And visualization is incredibly powerful. If you think just at the simplest level, think like the Fitbit dashboards that folks have, right? It allows a person to just get a snapshot of their health or their activities, and that's what we allow our users to do as well. Here, let's take a look at the cyclicality of pest outbreaks in the field. Let's overlay weather events on top of that. Spider mite pressure went up. Did it rain? Did it, let's start connect the dots. And that allows folks to connect the dots. And to me, that aligns also with this aspect of a decision-making platform for our users. My agronomist users are always going to be smarter than what we can give them. They've been out there in the field 20, 25 years, longer, less, whatever it may be, but that field is like, oftentimes like their baby. It's kind of like if you've got a dog, you can recognize your dog in a group of 20 other dogs, even if they're all the same breed. If somebody else comes in, they may not be able to tell the difference, right? But that that's your dog. And that's how many of our users are in their fields. And so what we give them is the ability to analyze their fields in a different way than they have been in the past. And that connects to the visualization, that connects to the ability to search, et cetera. So that's that second step, is visualization, still descriptive data. The next step for us is a predictive aspect. And these are things that we're starting to do, weather models, for example. If above X% humidity and below Y degrees, we expect that you're going to have an outbreak of this fungus. Is that going to be 100% true? No, but it's going to give the user the ability to make that informed choice on what to do, because, hey, we're now starting to see a trend or a pattern in his or her fields. And again, allows them to make that ultimate decision. And so then you've got that, and you can just keep adding layers to it, right? So you can add soil information, weather information, the amount of treatment that they applied, right? Let's take a look at what happens if you apply 1 pound per acre versus 1.1 pound per acre of a different treatment. And it's really just about sophisticated data analysis and making sense of this stuff for our users so that they can make the decision.
So is the user putting in this data on categories like humidity and soil fertilization, or is that process somehow automated?
Yeah, so the user inputted data is what the user sees out in the field. Mm-hmm. Pest type, severity level. We collect a lot of automated data from different data feeds. So weather information, that's automated. Where the tractor has been, we integrate with John Deere, we pull that in. Aerial imagery, we've integrated with a few companies, we'll pull that in automatically for folks. Soil information, we pull that in automatically. So there's kind of two types of data streams. There's the automated data stream, which frankly, that's all that is commoditized data at this point. If you're willing to pay for it, or if you built out the API connection, you can pull that in. And then there's a manual data feed, which is where kind of our bread and butter comes in, is allowing our users to easily, quickly, and efficiently enter in the manual data in a standardized, structured, georeferenced way. And then both of those two data feeds work together in order to get to that ultimate decision-making platform for our user.
Got it. Okay. So what do the demographics of your consumer base typically look like? Do you find they're the large-scale farmer? Are they a family-owned farm? Are both of the two able to benefit kind of equally from your product?
Yeah, so we've purposely built FarmDog to be crop and region agnostic. Basically means it's fully customizable. So we've got users, we're being used on around 1.5 million acres, mostly in the US and Canada, from lettuce and tomatoes in Florida to wheat and canola in Western Canada and everything in between. In July 2020, I believe we were used in 27 or 28 different states, 6 or 7 provinces in Canada, again, across a wide variety of crops. What kind of aligns most of our users is that they are the person making the decision or the recommendation on what treatment to apply for their field. And so really, if you take it one step deeper, most of our users today are agronomists or sophisticated growers who do the agronomic scouting aspect themselves. These folks span across field size type. So we've got, for example, strawberry folks with 10-acre fields, and we've got some of these large wheat folks in Western Canada with 5,000-acre fields, whatever it may be. What brings most of our users together is what I call is they are sophisticated users. They know what they're looking for, and they just need a way to help organize everything. In terms of who does this help, it can help everybody. The ultimate vision can help everybody, that decision support platform, right? But if I bring it back to the day one value proposition of easy data accessibility, if you start to get to the 1 acre grower, I'll be honest, we're less helpful. We're still helpful, but if you've got 1 acre, oftentimes that grower knows what's going on in his or her field. They don't need it. We're not necessarily saving them a bunch of time by having them enter things digitally. It's no different than if you're a runner, and we're talking about Fitbits. If you run twice a week and each time you run a mile every time, you don't necessarily need the Fitbit. It's 2 times 1 times 52. You run 104 miles during the year. You know what's going on, right? So the more you run, or the more fields you have, the more acreage you have, the value proposition that we have increases.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So here's my last question. What are some of the biggest challenges facing agriculture tech companies today? And what qualities do you think an innovator in the field should have?
So the challenges are really straightforward, and this is every company in this space. It's adoption. It's adoption of ag tech. And the reason that's a challenge is, there's a few things. One, growers are busy, right? So first you got to track them down. Two is, if you're going to have them adopt a new technology, you need to either be replacing, a different process that they're doing or significantly saving them time on something. You can't just give them something new because you say, hey, this will help you 5 years down the line. The third aspect is, and probably should be the first one, farming is very relationship based. And so, yes, I can go out and go meet a grower in Southwest Kentucky and speak with him or her, but they don't know me yet. And so you need to build up that trust. And I think every business is relationship based, but in agriculture, it's even more so. That's a challenge. And then the last aspect is really the ability to prove your value proposition, right? As I think, as folks will say, a farmer has, 40 chances at their livelihood in their life, right? Because 40 growing seasons. And from that aspect, that also means that from a company perspective, you really have 40, not 40 iterations, but you have one iteration per year to get it right. What does that mean? If you miss the beginning of the growing season for the farmer, you got to wait until next year. And that happened to us one time. We were supposed to work with a very large strawberry grower in Florida. Our tech wasn't ready in time for the beginning of his growing season. We were like 2 weeks late. We get to him, he said, come back next year. Like, I'm not adopting this right now. The second aspect of this is, great, your technology helped me reduce pesticide use this year compared to last year. But this year it also rained more than it did last year, rained less, whatever it may be. I, as a farmer, am not yet convinced. So let's do another pilot, right? And that's another year. And then eventually you start to branch out. Now, that's really challenging for a startup, where a startup thinks in, time frame for a startup is a year and a half, right? We don't have 5 years worth of cash to make sure that we're around for that long aspect. And so that's another challenge for ag tech is there's a lot of really smart people working on things that may not necessarily have the resources to see it all the way through. So that's those are challenges. So it comes back to adoption is the main one, and then timing and kind of the relationship aspect. In terms of what folks need to succeed, agriculture is an industry that brings a lot of really smart, dedicated, and people who are pleasant to work with. And I think that's a key. It's very rare that in this industry you'll find somebody that is an asshole, to be frank. And so to work in the industry, you have to be able to work in that sort of environment. And it's funny to say, but not everybody can successfully work in a nice industry. That's number one. Number two is the ability to listen. Every grower is going to be different. And just because your technology has worked with a strawberry grower in California doesn't mean it's going to be relevant or work for a corn grower in Iowa. And to be successful, you need to be able to go out there and learn again from that new grower. And so it's the ability to listen and to adjust. And then the third aspect is also humility. This is, I think, just humility in the face of adverse things that can affect your ability testing. So I'll give you an example. Last year, we were supposed to test out a new part of our technology in the Midwest. Last year, I think it was 100-year flood in the Midwest, and we weren't able to test. Or if we were able to test, the results were all over the place because, hey, it rained 5 feet. We weren't expecting that, right? And so it's humility in the face of technology not being able to overcome things that you're not able to control. And so to me, those are the things. And then, of course, the last one is just being smart. But you can define smart in a lot of different ways, right? You can be an incredible software engineer. You can be an incredible robotics person. You can be an incredible agronomist. But that, I think, is similar to every industry. If you want to succeed, you gotta have smart folks on your team helping you out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's been really inspirational and great having you on the show today. Do you have any last, words for our audience? Young people who have a passion or interest in pursuing sustainability or agriculture.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me, Julian. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat about what we're doing and my thoughts on the industry. For all the young folks out there looking to get in the space, please do. We need a lot of smart, passionate folks in the space, and we need y'all to come here and help us solve real problems, as opposed to e-marketing optimization or other things of the sort. Those things are needed as well, but I think smart people have been doing that for long enough. We need y'all over here. And I would push folks to reach out, even if you don't come from the agriculture space. Like I said, I didn't. Reach out, learn about it. Um, Agriculture industry is a very important, powerful one that has a great future ahead of it. And we need more smart folks and passionate folks to get in here. And I encourage everybody to do so.
Yeah, yeah. Test. 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 Test.